kind of want to start with the space of writing and your words, and how did you initially start writing, and then tell us a little bit about the books that you've just published and why they came to be.
Yes. She said, I'm gonna give you a fully loaded question, bitch. You better give me a fully loaded answer. I got y'all. So yeah, I started writing when I was a little girl. I was a very early reader. And I was in foster care my whole life. So I was in like all kinds of courtrooms and court mandated therapy, and I didn't talk very much. So they asked me, you know, to draw a picture of how I was feeling, and I would always just write something down or write a few words or write a poem. And then, so that was something that was always very supported, and I didn't consider it an art form until, yeah, I was in like later in elementary school, I guess. Which I guess isn't very, very late. But yeah, I won this poetry contest when I was in 4th grade, and I was like 2nd place in the New York Times poetry contest, and the winner was like 17, and I was in 4th grade, and I was like, so, but my whole school was like, oh shit, this is something that we can take seriously, that our students can take seriously. And so even though I was moving all the time, I knew that I could take my writing very seriously, but I also knew what it was like to be in a courtroom. And I knew that my word, as even though I was a child, was very important. I was making adult decisions that would ultimately impact my whole life. So then it was like, okay, if what I say and what I record, what I write down, what my thoughts are this important, what does it become if I make it less about what it's giving other people and more about what it's giving me? And so, yeah, a lot of my work is very autobiographical. It's just looking at the different universes that I've occupied. You know, I've been through a lot in my youth, my young life, thank you, God. And I survived a lot, but I also was very, very much a witness to the way people work and the way the adults in my life work. So the second my career started kind of rolling into itself and becoming more than just writing in my journal, then music entered the space, and it was like, okay, if music allows people to listen, even if they don't digest the words, they digest the vibration, how do I then make sure that once I got people's attention, what I say is what they need to know at this moment in time? So my process as a writer has always been very free. I don't like editing. I believe that what I said is what I said. And if I'm not trying to say something else, then I deserve to give myself the time to say something else. If I write 20 poems trying to say I love you, then those 20 poems are what I love you looks like. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so that's why I was wondering the other day, I was like, once these books are out, I think I'm finally ready to write about something else. Like, I was like, at some point, you know, as I was writing Concrete Kids, which is about Harlem and gun violence, and it touches on foster care and what it's like to be a child moving all the time and having to assimilate, but also wanting to identify with the version of the self that I know, not the nicknames people are calling me, not who they expect me to be, not their questions about me. But as I was writing Concrete Kids, I was like, holy shit, I was adopted when I was 13, and I'm about to be I'm about to be 28 on Friday. And I was like, I've lived longer than the aspect of my life that I write about most often. You know, I write about ages like 4 to 15 most often. That's like the brunt of my experience of all of these things was in those ages. And I was like, holy fuck, I've officially lived a whole half life and a little bit more. Like after that, this is what I'm talking about. What has happened now? What has happened? Where do I want to go? And it took half my life to heal from half my life. And I would love, I write the things that I write so that people can be invited to heal ASAP. Like, ain't nobody talk like me. Like, nobody talks like me about the terrifying things that I talk about, because I talk about them from a place of lived healing, you know? And it's like, oh, if I allow myself to heal right now, I may just be able to invite others.
And I think that point of lived healing is so like just instrumental. And I know something that like we talk about quite a lot is giving yourself permission, and especially when you were writing like Concrete Kids, and it being such a lot like reminiscing and feeling as if you're holding a lot of your community on your shoulders, like for that particular piece. What did that process look like of giving yourself permission whilst also like having editors and all of that like mixed into it?
Yeah, it was really hard. I'm not used to having a team at all. I make all my decisions. I decide where I'm going to be. I decide how I'm going to pay my rent. I've been deciding these things since I was a little girl. I've been working since I was 7. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been my own parent, my own boss, my own everything for a very long time. So coming to a place where I was being asked, initially they asked me to write about like overcoming grief in response to the consistent trauma that like gun violence, right? So like we constantly are being faced with these brutal murders, and we never see justice. How do you tell a young person to ever feel safe in this world? Was essentially the initial conversations of this book. And I said, that is not the book that I want to write. If my name is going to be here, if I'm going to give a year of my life, I need to do more. Like, you need to know that I saw shootouts and we still laughed at the funeral. You need to know that we were poor, but we fed everyone we knew. Like, you need to know the truth. You can't just know the headline. You can't just pity me. You can't ask me to pity myself. And that was a huge frame of thinking that I had to take when I started tackling this piece, because the piece became what it was going to become, you know. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm an improviser, and I improvise everything. And so most of my work is written in the moment. Even like my play, like Vaseline, it was like all these songs were written in the moment. These conversations were recorded in the moment. This movement was based on how my body felt today. And it still is over when you leave the theater. The song is done when you leave the show. I might be able to create a recording that exists online that people can listen to on Spotify, but they still have an opportunity to hear me do it again live. You know what I'm saying? It is allowed to continue its transformation. But a book, I was like, I better not play myself. I've read journal entries where I've offended my damn self, talking like I had no damn sense because I wasn't healed yet. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the anger. I mean, you were talking about this, Alia, like, how do you look at something that was so intense and had to slightly be removed from yourself while you were there, now with grace and forgiveness and love, you know? And so it was like, I'm looking at the people who killed the person, you know, that I love. And I had to write about it with forgiveness because they too were human people. Like, I can't have a book that in any capacity invites hate. And so even in my rage and in my anger, you know, and so that was a lot of the beginning conversations. I write a million manifestos, and manifestos to me are just like streams of consciousness that say, this is what your intent is. This is who it is for. This is who you are trying to reach. This is the one person you pray opens this book. And then I kept writing. I was like, something that you needed, something that you needed. And it slowly changed into something that you need right now, you know? So that was that. And I had a lot of conversations with people about their childhoods. I was like, maybe your memory will spark mine. What's your sister's favorite song when you were 10? You know, and listening to nostalgic music, talking to my best friends from high school, like we were in high school still, you know, like just letting things kind of align. It's like, for so much of your life, you're living in the phases of school or your job, where you moved. And those are the people that kind of, the nucleus changes, you know? And for the first time in my life right now, having lived in London, having lived in New York, having gone to college and, you know, school and all these things, all these people are suddenly aligning in one dimension And I think that that book had a lot to do with it. It rose a lot of my foundation that I hadn't been, I just hadn't been in, as deep communication with. And it allowed me to really get in deep communication with who I was, because these people knew me then,
Yeah. And I think, obviously, you were living in London whilst like writing it and then trying to connect alongside. And that whole process of the geographical location being different to the one that you were like talking about or reminiscing on or like healing from, how did living in London impact that?
I think about this often. It was like I was able to make how they make, an architect will make a small model of this big ass thing and make it to scale. Like I felt like I was looking at Harlem, like I was holding it in my palm and was like looking at Harlem. I saw like literally this was my block. This is where the boy got shot. This is where Alex got jumped. This is where I was literally like, I lived in a radius. I can look at this radius now. This is me looking at it. When I've been in New York, I have been so overwhelmed by returning to Harlem since my mother died, that it has been a hard place to walk, because it's I lived there. The person who was selling jewelry on 2nd Avenue still sells jewelry there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so much nostalgia and so much lived experience in such a dense, small place that I don't know what the book would have been if I was able to go and spend all my days walking in Central Park, remembering when I used to run away there, or like if I went and I sat with my god brother and we had a drink when we were actually old enough to, like it was like, I don't know what I would do if I would have wrote that book on my stoop in Harlem. Like, I don't know how I would have been able to reflect in that. And I think about it every day. I'm like, I can't wait to write something else too, like my biography, where I allow myself to
like detachment by being in a completely different context. And I know there were like a level of like ruptures that happened whilst living in London that completely made the space and like the reminiscing about Harlem in like completely contextualized in a different way, and almost like a new appreciation for it.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, it made me realize that like, I think trauma does this unfortunate thing where it kind of blacks out. It just blacks out everything, and that's also the version of ourselves that we see in the media at the moment. You get the whole series about somebody who lost their son. You get the whole series about, this murderer's mind, but you get an episode, maybe a 10-minute moment, a segment, a thought, a mention about when a Black person got to be, right, human, not dead. And so for me, Harlem was this place where I lost everybody that I love. How do I allow myself to understand that I'm still here? When every single my mother is gone, half of the kids I grew up with died before I graduated high school. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, this place to me when I went to college was like, I'm leaving the graveyard and I'm going to go to the garden. And then one day, maybe I'll be able to go back there and do this, and that. And I think with this book, what I made sure I did was honor the reality of what people who are living in tight, close, diverse communities are experiencing on a celebratory level and on a healing level. And just like looking at that tension, and again, I'm not in a place where I need to be afraid of my decisions anymore, or where somebody's trying to limit them. So how do I, again, the intention of Concrete Kids was, how do I present this life I led with the level of intention and direction that someone may need to be invited to make choices, to recognize that they are allowed to make choices, that they are allowed to question the people who are meant to protect them, the people who are meant to tell them how to live their lives. How do you invite people to know that they can, regardless of how stuck they feel, can really make a choice. And even if it is to survive the next 5 months in this place, to be able to know the day, right? And like, as a writing Concrete Kids, I swear, like I recognized all the choices that I made as a child that allowed me to live this moment of liberation, you know? And it's like, if we allow ourselves to see the things that we've done and the things that we've overcome, we really can imagine what tomorrow looks like, you know? So yeah.
And I think,
and I guess, and like, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, I've been like thinking a lot about, not like, I don't want to say the politics, because it's not every day, try and put it into language that sometimes doesn't know how to like hold these emotions or hold what is happening, particularly find there's difficulties with the English language at the moment, of they can't express what the mind or the body or the spirit can, and so sometimes they just don't come out correctly because they almost feel foreign, and over intellectualizing, I guess, of being and existence. And I know, like, when we spoke about like manifesting from thought to action beforehand, you've spoken a lot about the importance of prayer. What does that as a ritual look like in your life currently, and with making things happen?
Yeah, I pray constantly. So it's something that I stopped doing. So can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
It was yeah, I don't think I stopped doing. I had like this epiphany like a year and a half ago that was amen and after, right? And I say that all the time now. I got a tattoo of it. She's cute. She's there. She keeps me grounded. But amen and after to me was a recognition that when I pray, when I say amen, amen translates to it is done. If it is done, that means what I said now is a destination that I can walk towards, whether it's this grandiose thing that is almost impossible, whether it's healing from an ailment, no matter, praying for somebody that I haven't seen, praying that somebody lives, praying that somebody transitions, like anything that I am praying for, I already know that it is done. But I also know that the things that I expect to see may not look the way I expect them. So now I've diminished my expectations, you know, because if I think that what I prayed for is gonna happen, but I also act like I know more than God, the universe, anything else, then I am not allowing myself to face unanswered prayer. You know what I mean? So when I look at amen, I think of after. After amen is when my action begins. It's when I walk towards the prayers that I know are already done. Like I wouldn't say amen if I didn't believe that it was gonna happen. Like that doesn't make any sense, you know? So that's been my relationship to prayer. And I think that, you know, I channel. I have a lot of wild experiences. I didn't really ask to be an artist. I was called to be one, you know? And like when I sing, a lot, if you experience me sing, there are moments you'll see my eyes disappear. I may not come back. I'm a vessel, you know what I mean? And not in any way in which I read a book, tried to hashtag, learned how to do anything to be one. I found out I was one, and it was a lifestyle change. Like, it was like, oh my God, people, they feel a vibration. And if I allow there to be silence for just enough, they may just break with me. And do I want to break them or do I want to help them? I can't save nobody. That's not my job. That's really my relationship to prayer. I've started realizing that I really want to have a physical relationship to prayer. Which has happened to me a few times, like when I channel, but I want to like create it. There's a movement that lives that's like very just alive. But yeah, the station, like I make lists. I acknowledge what I'm great at. I'm afraid to call myself great at something. I'm not afraid to be bad at something, which I think is a lot of people's fear. They want to be great at something before anybody ever gets to see what they have to offer. And it's like, actually, I want to become great before your very eyes. Like, anybody who saw me sing 5 years ago, they come to a show now and they do not know what happened. And I do. Like, I was performing every single motherfucking day. You know what I mean? And so manifestation is, a lot of people confuse it and make it an inactive thing. It's the most active thing in the world. Like, working for yourself is working 50, 60, 75 hours for yourself. Like, I don't sit at home and I'm like, wish I could be an artist. Like, no, I'm like, yo, every single person in this world deserves what I have to offer. And I deserve to watch them receive it. So I'm going to do that work. And if it's a room of one, they are the most important person to me. And if it's a room of thousands, each individual one of those people informs the other person who is near them, who is receiving as well. And so that has made space for me to do whatever it is that I want. I'm like, I will never be disrespected. If I'm disrespected, you will find out in the moment. I'm not that bitch. With my best friends, they hate me for it. Like, I don't receive something and say, let me hold on to it. I learned a long time ago that I could be weightless, and I'm a thick bitch. I learned a long time ago I could be weightless. You know what I mean? And like, how do you like invite your career as an artist to be separate, but as respected as your person? You know what I mean? And like, that's been a big thing, but it also has invited all my human to be necessary in so many different places, because I said I was necessary, because I am. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that level of belief. It doesn't matter what the fuck I'm doing. It doesn't matter what level I'm at. It doesn't matter if I think this poem will be better in 3 weeks. You will be better in 3 weeks. Shit. Like, like, let the work live its life. Let it breathe. Know that if you release it, you can release it again. Know you can take it down. If it's going to be in print, I talked to myself. I was trying to write every single book I've ever written or will write in one book. It ain't gonna happen. This book gonna be good, and the next one gonna be better. What's wrong with you and me? Like, no. Like, if I would have said, oh, I don't, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, I'm not ready. I'm not this. I'm not that. I would have never found out what I was ready for, what I needed, what support looks like.
But it's also the fact that
what success.
That we automatically start from a place of lack, that we're like, I'm not this, I'm not that, instead of what am I, what can I give? Where do we start from that space? I guess we know some of the reasons as to why that happens, but like you were saying, there's a point where we are able to make that choice, we are able to move forward, but again, unless a lot of those things are healed, unless we see that value in ourselves or start to have those like types of ruptures, it just automatically, those fears are the things that continue to manifest instead of the possibility. Yeah. What I just want to delve into as well is how, when we're living so honestly to our emotions and to our process, and I guess there being a commitment to our growth instead of a commitment to our fears, no matter how scary those things may be, how do you build safe creative practice or safe space for yourself within that when interacting with Babylon institutions or with the constant head knocking of like people not understanding that as a way of being?
Honestly, that was something I learned the hard way. That was a big difference between New York and London, is that in New York, you won't be invited into the room unless they want you there. Ain't nobody in New York gonna give you a check unless they're ready to respect you, okay? In London, I found myself getting opportunities with people who weren't prepared to deal with the person behind the color, okay? They weren't prepared to deal with the content behind the title. Like, nobody was prepared for me. They certainly weren't prepared to respect me, and they weren't prepared for the way that I handled being disrespected. Okay, at the end of the day, I am from Harlem. I will never, ever, ever pretend like I have control over what my body and my spirit will do when I am being disrespected. So that is what I let God do through me, as well as anything else. Okay. But in that, I realized that I needed to, in a lot of reflection now that I'm sitting, right? I'm sitting and I got, I released the pre-order. Supposed to be in Amazon right now. Lord, pretend there's a rainforest above me and below. But I was supposed to be doing way too much still, and I realized in my whole career, which I would say definitely began in like 2015, in my whole career, I haven't had a moment to greet the very massive arrivals that I just skirted right past. Mm-hmm. Like my first book deal, I was on tour. I was like, that's clutch, and then it was like I had a whiskey because the show was over, not because I, got a book deal, and then, at one point I got all my book deals in like 2 weeks. And I was like, bitch, I had to say, I said yes to everything. And then I was like, oh, no, you got to drop one of these. Don't be crazy. And I was already being crazy. Saying yes to 3 at once was like ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But again, like Vaseline came and went, and it was this incredibly massive accomplishment, massive for me, for my spirit, for myself as a writer. I wrote something that was 1 hour and 20 minutes that involved other people. It had music, it had poetry, it had movement. I spent months applying for funding and doing all this shit. And I let myself be so disheartened by disrespect that I didn't let myself also then celebrate what I accomplished in that space, and I think that is an unfortunate thing, because when you write in about Blackness, people forget that you're Black too. So they want to talk about the work, or they're afraid of you because the work is true. It's honest in a way, whether we frame it as fiction or poetry or a song. There's a level of truth that people are terrified of and they do not want to confront. So I realized, and you were a very heavy part of this, love you, girl. We need to ask for accountability, right? I was overworked and I was like, please make sure I do this one thing. Please make sure that I actually take a moment before I respond to this, because the energy is mine to conserve, and knowing the difference. But also, that happened because I didn't know. I didn't know that I could be supported by a space, or that there even existed a space where I could be financially supported, given space to express myself at all, where I wouldn't also be safe, because I usually curate my space, so if I'm going to a venue and I'm playing, that's mine, but when you're operating in an industry that is bigger than you, when you are getting checks that are outside of you, when those things, that was my first time, like these books and this play were my first time really outsourcing how I made something, right? Because my career has been, I just do crazy amounts of live shows. I did like 200 shows a year. I'll be performing 5 times a week with my band, without my band, speaking, teaching, and all that money was mine. Everything I did before I was published was mine. I self-published my book myself. I spent $700. I got 250 copies of my book. I was broke as fuck for that $700 that I used to print it on little dinky paper. And I said, you know what? You know how you get unbroke, girl? You build a tour. Didn't know anything about building a tour. Went Scooby-Doo-Doo on Twitter, on Instagram, looked up poetry venues, looked up my favorite artists. And when they were small, like when they were, just starting out, their favorite venues. And then I said, I'm gonna go back to London. And I booked a 20-show tour over 6 weeks. I made crazy amounts of money, sold every single one of my books, and one of those books was sold itself to a publisher, And then from that, because I invested in myself, this publisher was like, yo, these poems are crazy. Do you want to be a part of this anthology that Amnesty International is doing? And I was like, oh, yes, she does. How much you paying me? And they were not paying me much. And I was like, damn, you got some names on here. You could be paying me more. And they were like, yeah, I know, but you're last minute, whatever. And I was like, okay, we have to know when to invest and what it looks like. And so I said yes. And I wrote these 2 poems for the piece. The book is then without any of my investment beyond the poems. And like I said, my shit's an arrival. So trust the investment was approximately short. I did that, and I probably did something else that day. You know what I'm saying? And like, sometimes that's what your investments can look like. It doesn't always have to be 2 years spent on something. Like, nah, I already knew I was going to get better. I was writing for this what I knew I could, right? And so they printed, I'm only telling this whole process because it's actually fucking crazy, and it's led to these direct book deals. Like, get into this anthology. I have 2 pieces in the anthology. One is called Darling, and it's a love letter to Black and brown children. Just being like, they're gonna try to tell you everything. They're gonna try to tell you about your marrow, about your skin, about your future, past, and present, but give them a good reason to know your name, okay? And so that's like a love letter with that. And then Black and White is like, looking at the life of a child who's Black and a child who's white. And it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it was still political. It was still for kids, but it was still very pointed, directed, and firm in what my goals are and what it looks like when I speak on paper. So then one of those poems got picked up by a publisher from the anthology to be turned into a book. And then once that happened, I was like, in print, started reaching out to everybody. I was like, I just got a book deal. Look. And I was like, look at this, look at that, look at this. Yes, I self-published my first piece, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. It is incredible that I did that. It is incredible that I chose to say that these poems were necessary enough for someone to take home with them. So trust that what I've written here, just because it's self-published and I don't have a literary agent, deserves your eyes, right? Because I knew already. I knew what I deserved. You know, because I decided, even if I didn't know that it was true, if I didn't know I could accomplish whatever was going to come, I was like, I know I deserve whatever it is that they have to offer, because I deserve everything, you know? And so, yeah, it got raised. And then I told a bunch of people about it. And I did this like speech about the importance of diversity in children's literature, like how important it is to learn how to read when you see somebody that looks like you tying their shoelaces in that illustration. Okay, when you see somebody with a name like yours, on when you're learning how to read, how to share, how to do anything. Like children's literature, I realized in this journey, is one of the most important points of impact. How can you see yourself right now? How can I say, love yourself? How can I say, inhale, exhale, you are alive, you are good, life is difficult, but your exhale is the most important thing. How do you teach children that? So that when they're met with all these things, they know not to receive them. When they know that their breath is, they will know the difference when their breath is shallow. Like, how do you tell a child, it's okay if you feel, honey, dance in it. We live there sometimes. Like, how do you stop children from censoring themselves, but really invite them to express themselves? And that's the same work I'm doing with adults. I don't write, the work I write for children is the exact poem that I would write to you, my sister, who I can see has lived a life, who, you know? So yeah, and it just led to, once I found out I could sing, I tell you, you know, I can't stop. I decided that every time I speak publicly, I will sing first for 30 to 90 seconds. Arrive with me. You don't expect anything from me. And I'm going to give you all that I got in this moment, because it's already enough. I don't need you for an hour. I don't even need you for 10 minutes. I need you for 30 seconds to know that I am arrived in what I have to offer and that you deserve it too, you know? And I did that. And then I was like, y'all pay me to, it's important that I'm visible, but you won't let me be on the shelf. And so I'm gonna let y'all, this room 200 motherfuckers who came here to learn from me today, know that the real lesson is putting me on the shelf. Next time, when you reach for a book to learn something, you will reach for me and you won't have to call me to be here. Because I'm everywhere, because I'm allowed to be everywhere, because I'm necessary everywhere, because I exist everywhere. And they were like, and then I got a bunch And then I got a bunch of book deals right away. And then I hit them up and I said, here's a list of other people who are Black and fucking talented that you should also contact, because this is also a problem. Just because I said, look, y'all, I'm talented, intellectual, and fucking fly as hell, and I will never apologize to you. You should put me on the shelves. Trust me that behind me is a million people just like me. Millions of us have always existed, and you've never given us the space. So do not come to me overcrowding my inbox, trying to make me do too much, burn out before I'm fucking 30, because you didn't recognize the fucking people that you had around you the whole time. Like, what is wrong with y'all, you know? And that's been a big part of my thing, is making sure that the people in my life receive not what I have to offer, receive the same things that I'm receiving. You know what I mean? Like, my check, I don't need to give you a piece of my check. I need the person who signed mine to learn your name and sign yours. You know what I'm saying? How do you make lifelong, long-term investments in the people that you love and in your communities? You know what I mean? That was long. I'm really overwhelmed. I was like, oh, hell no. These people.
They're 7. It's exactly what, bro. And Amara's just put as well, like, this is the energy that I needed in lockdown. But I hear that on a spiritual level. I think there's been like a big like explosion of people not necessarily knowing what to do with their own energy during this period of time, but also of their worth, or being able to initiate projects, or being able to like just create and have like a freedom to get back to yourself. Before I throw it out to more questions from all the lovely people watching, I just wanted to ask, I know you spoke a little bit about the process of how you like get things done and how you initiated your projects. What are some of the things that you say when you're working with younger people about setting up their own projects, or like getting things done from a space of belief instead of lack, to actually finalizing and evaluating them?
The biggest thing for me is accountability. Whenever I'm working on something that I know I deserve to finish, which is everything, I tell at least one person about my idea, right? And then I make sure to have conversations about intention. Why is this necessary? Is it necessary right now? Is this how I would like to spend the next few hours, next few weeks, next few months of my life? You know, turn into a film, or you want it to be more than what it is. You got to make space for that. But that every single idea, I know that it is potentially the very thing that will fund the rest of my ideas. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe that there's any amount of money that anybody could pay me to wake up and spend my life on someone else, on something else. So how do I want to spend my life? And how do I make sure that, you know, I throw every idea into a sphere where everything is possible? Like, the impossible was dictated too many times and proven wrong. Can you imagine? Like, my mother, she died saying, if God wanted me to fly, he would have given me wings, because she ain't like planes, right? But like, can you imagine the person who said, I want us to fly? Like, that's so silly that we would believe that that's possible, but not believe that we could be, you know, allow ourselves to take ourselves so seriously. And again, it's about building safety. If you feel safe when you are afraid, you can do anything. If you feel safe in your depression, you can do anything. And if you don't feel safe, then I would suggest that be the first place you start. How do you build safety around yourself? What makes you feel good? What makes you say, I am honored to do this? What makes you feel joy? What makes you feel safe? You know, like, who makes you feel safe? I like have all these rituals of talking to my body and warming up my instrument before I speak, before I offer anything. So how do I warm up to my ideas and make sure that I allow them to be offerings? You know, I think
that space of clarity with them. I remember we having a conversation in Peckham at one point, and like something you said that has just rocked me for the rest of my life was you like confusion is a state of violence, and the important, and I was like,
ain't no need to be confused.
But the importance of like unpacking and figuring out exactly what is going on in order for you to not only like process your emotions, but your value, your worth, you're being able to build these projects.
And I think people forget though, they forget as an artist, it's all of you, right? People, they have different beautiful minds that do different things, but a doctor, when they do brain surgery, they ain't there recreating the surgery. They know what they about to do, right? They learn the roadmap. It's like going to the grocery store. You walk, and if that goes, and you walk down the other block, you still going to the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, as an artist though, ain't no path been created. Ain't no sense to make as a Black person in the world. So if there ain't no sense to make, I'm gonna stop trying to make it, and I'm gonna find out what my sense is. Ain't nobody's sense, you know, need to make sense to nobody else. My chaos is my chaos, you know? And I think that we just need to allow ourselves to, you know, again, just take yourself seriously. You being upset, you being sad, you being ill-motivated, you being angry, you being in mourning, you needing to heal, those are not things to be upset with. They're not things to rush. And they are, everything of that is a part of the way you will allow yourself to express yourself, you know, no matter what the medium is. If your body is tense, you certainly won't be dancing the same. If your chest hurts, you certainly won't be flowing the same when you speak. If you have not allowed yourself to release, then your writing will be stifled. You know what I'm saying? If we liberate ourselves in everything and feel safe in that, our writing, our work, our intentions will always have some form of sense, at least to ourselves, which is again why I say share it with friends, because sometimes their sense is the very thing that will push you into a place of momentum. You know what I mean? And sometimes just knowing, I said it out loud. Amen. And after, you know what I'm saying? Let your dreams, let your intentions, let your healing, let your goals, let all of them be prayers. Why not answer them for yourselves? There are things, if there's more for you to do, then do it, you know? And believe, especially in this time, ain't no sense in worrying about anybody else. Nobody, not one person. And I think the most important thing that I've had to realize is that I'm the most important person. Without me, I cannot love, I cannot I cannot do anything for anyone else if I ain't here, if I ain't right, if I am 100. If I ain't 100, you won't see me, okay? Because you must believe that I will do all that I can to make sure that what I have does not leave me dry. Ain't no point in, because then you can't give no more. You know what I'm saying? And so it's about surrounding yourself with people who can see the future with you from where you are standing, and can also look at you and see where you are. You know what I mean? And surrounding yourself with people who allow you to change, people who allow you to grow before them, and allowing yourself to reintroduce yourself, not only to yourself, because I've grown in this conversation. I gotta introduce myself right now, you know? Hey, I'm Amyra Leon, and I know how I got here. You know what I'm saying? And you need to allow yourselves to reintroduce yourself to your family. Ain't nobody supposed to keep a version of you. You are so much more than that. Your ideas are more than the version on paper, and they're more than the version you haven't spoken yet. So allowing yourself to limitless, look at the sky for a while and keep looking. It don't stop. Oh, there's questions. I know I talk a lot, but we had some fallout. So we'll just do like 10 more minutes, you know what I'm saying? We had some fallout.
Honestly, I could talk all day, and like we definitely have a catch up pending. But I think Amara's got a question. Can you see it be in the thing? In the chat?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It says, has lockdown changed the way you think or work?
What are you planning
yeah,
in the
post-COVID-19 world?
Yeah. It's changed a lot of the ways, I think. Routine, things I've always wanted to do, and taking them further. I am learning just how much of my life and joy comes from being in communication and in a room with people. My whole career was built on being there in person. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't go to my Spotify and see millions of plays, but I've toured everywhere, you know, because I was there. I was in the room, and the people who were there with me mattered. And so I'm realizing now just how impactful that was. And how, like, I literally, I took a shower today and I said, damn, I miss those gigs I did for free that I regretted. Like, just like that one gig where, like, you know, I was there doing a favor for a homie and somebody in the back was an asshole. Like, I missed that even. That's where I got to. But recognizing what I do have to offer and what, you know, just how many choices I actually made. I'm in a state of reflection, which I constantly am. But because I'm not moving from my stoop, I'm very present. And the way that I work, you know, I've been finding out what work needs to be. I was supposed to be on tour. I was supposed to be doing more festivals this year than I've ever done in my career. I was supposed to be doing a lot of things. And I'm just sitting here with the reality that as much as it is painful, both financially, spiritually, mentally, like, this was my year, my arrival year. Got 2 books coming out this year, an album coming out this year. I was supposed to bring my play back to stage and turn my play into a film this year. Everything was funded. Everything was prepared. You know what I mean? And it was like, whoa, I've never been this prepared. I've never been this much funded. I've never had these tours. Oh my God. And to see all of that was an invitation for me to recognize just where I got to. You know what I'm saying? Because we move so fast, we forget where we arrived, where we went, where we wanted to be, that we already passed. Like, so a lot of my work has been allowing myself to remind myself what I've done and to ask myself what it is that I want to do now. And yeah, I'm just grateful that I was able to receive my books in this place of actual I received them, like, literally was like, oh my God, the cover! I don't even have the fucking book in my hands. And I was like, damn! When I would have been on tour, I would have made an Instagram post and I would have gone to sound check. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wouldn't have had that moment. And so I'm really trying to build of when my life it's going to take years for musicians to be able to tour the way we were. I will never be able to do what I was doing in a year. It's going to take like 5 years, I think. Because, like, the amount of shows that I was doing, the amount of places that I was going, the amount of people that I was surrounded by constantly, it's going to be a time. And so now I'm really trying to see how I can get involved with people's foundations. A lot of the venues that I love, I'm like, okay, well, when we reopen, you should be different. You should have more diversity. You should have more budget for emerging artists. You should make sure that every artist is fed and that their transit is covered. Like, you should treat us better. It shouldn't be that in a state of emergency, you find out just how necessary I am. Now there's money for me to create because you realize that people are going to be at home thirsty for new music and for things to read. Are you crazy? Now you want to give me money when I could have seen the world, and now suddenly people are getting checks from everywhere. And I'm like, damn, y'all made this easy now? It could have been easy? Like, damn. This is what
in 20 minutes. What do you mean, Arts Council?
This is what I'm saying. So, hi, you can, I'm sorry, I'm in a meeting. Thank you so much, honey. My man, woman. But yeah, so it's just, I've been really just trying to understand what I want to do now and ask myself the questions that are coming from a place of this somewhat, pure place. I also realized that the very thing everybody told me I couldn't do when I was a child, which was make money as a poet, is the only thing that will feed me right now. You know, all I got to do is write a book. And I realized that in this moment, I don't got no literary agent. I don't got no manager. I still ain't got no one to confer with. You know what I'm saying? And that has been very difficult. But in this moment, it allows me to make every single decision that will allow me to feed myself. So, yeah. And I've also been writing like a lot about how to create the world that we want to see. Right. And that's always been kind of my thing. Like, if I confront the things that make me terrified of the world, I may just be able to live safely in the world, you know? And now it's more so about how do I build the place you're trying to go so that you can walk with me, right? And so all of my book ideas that have come from this are amazing. And they're like, and amazing, not, and like, oh, but I haven't written them yet, obviously, but they're places that I want to go, not places that I'm afraid of going, not places that I know hold years of confrontation. Like I did that work, and that work was so that I could come here and say, y'all, I'm gonna take you to Eden. Let's walk together. You know what I'm saying? So that's been exciting. I'm making more joyful work, and I'm being more intentional before I begin my work, which has been lovely. And yes, writing for children, there's nothing worse than belittling the mind of a child. It's what makes them grow at the pace in which they do. If you teach a child how to read, they will receive what they've learned to read. If you teach a child how to they will sing the way you allowed them to. What you told them was right and wrong will dictate their steps. You know what I'm saying? But if you teach them that there is no right and wrong, there is living, there's arrival, there's rebirth. If you do these things, it will invite a softer version of what I guess is possible, right? But yeah.
My chest.
These questions. Wait, I'll be quicker. But yeah, also because I also write like that because I was a really smart child. I've been in court since I was 4 years old on the stand. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to understand that what I said was going to be under oath. I had to understand the importance of my words when I was a child, but then I would go to kindergarten and I would go to first grade and I was being abused and experiencing all these things. And then I would go to school and they'd be like, the cat said to the ball, did it? And I was like, the fuck? Like, I'm elevated. Y'all are keeping me dumb. Like, you don't think that I have feelings? You don't think that when I was crying for a year before I knew language that I had things to say? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? You know, like children, they have the vocabulary and the spiritual awareness of any adult, but we limit them. We cannot limit the children no more. We cannot ask them pointed questions. We have to ask the right questions and be prepared for the answers we're not prepared for. You know, like we have to let them surprise us continuously, not just when they learn how to walk and talk, but when they have their own thoughts. You know, and as a person who has babysat, a person who has helped raise kids, a person who raised themselves, I know that people will diminish the intellect of a child faster than they will ever question their own. And it is a shame. And it is the reason why there's disparity between generations. It is the reason I am not smarter than my niece who just turned 9 years old. She told me that the bumblebee turned 3 the day before she turned 9. And I say, why do you think that is? And she was like, because I was already old enough to know what it was when it was here. So it must be 3 years old because I'm only 9. And I was like, that's some pretty elevated thoughts, sis. You know, and she like, I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, you know, the birds, they die sometimes just as they get their wings. And I was like, destroy me. You know? And then I showed her my children's book because she loves painting. And I was like, you know, you could take it seriously. And she was like, I do take it seriously. I'm going to be a painter. I'm going to make a gallery out of my living room. And then I'm going to start selling paintings. I think I'm going to start selling them so that people like us can afford them. I'll sell my paintings for $4. And then, you know, people who can really afford it, I'll sell them for more. And I was like, do you know me? Like, are you but also knowing there's people like us and there's people who have more. And there's people, I deserve to serve my own people too, right? You know what I'm saying? She's a child and she had those thoughts. And you have companies who will invite every single person who's involved in this right now, all across the top of the screen. They will invite each and every one of us to tell them how to have that thought. How do you think about the very people you are from and trying to serve? How? Ask a fucking child. Anyway, I do love when I'm sad. How do you work through between what you know and what your body actually feels? Sometimes there's no bridge to build. Sometimes there's no sense to make. And I think that is a beautiful, sometimes we got to accept that. You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine if the desert always wanted water? Like there's no sense sometimes. And I have gotten really, really, really well acquainted with comfort in that. If there is no sense and this is what is, then I'm going to let it be. Because if there was no eyes, no judgment, including my own, I would just be here like this for a while, you know? And knowing that as far as you may think, your expectations will always be met with something else. So even like my brother, he died last summer. And I was like, when my mother died a few years ago, I was like, I'll never be the same. I ain't never gonna be a person again. I literally left the whole state of America, like, yes, the current state of America, to be in London, in the current state of London. But trust me, the year of Brexit, my ass said, bye, I'm moving into that. Because I needed to run, because I said, if I stay here, this will be eternal. And it wasn't, And so when my brother died, I said, oh, who said you need a time limit on crying today? And I went to the park. The day I found out, I went to the park and I laid beneath a shit ton of trees and I cried until I didn't feel like crying no more, because I wasn't like, oh, this has to be done. This has to be over. I got work to do. It was like, hell no, I ain't got nothing to do but cry. And then when I was done crying, I started laughing. And then I noticed a moth, and now the moth is on my fucking leg. You know what I'm saying? Like, I let myself notice things, And I think that the more that you notice, the more you'll recognize how you got there. And I think the more that you recognize what is of you and what is of others, what is of society, you will start recognizing that you can control how things impact you, right? And so anything that is of you that comes naturally, give it all the space. But when I recognize that it's coming from somewhere else, I allow myself to make a decision and I say, well, is this gonna come with me? No. So I'm gonna let myself go where I need to go when I need to. But if it's from an outer source, I'm gonna invite myself to make a choice here. Like the other day, my unemployment got denied and I was gonna have a panic attack. And literally I felt it in my body. I don't know if you ever had a panic attack, you're like, oh shit, and before you know it, it's there. And before you know it, it's maybe 3 hours, maybe 3 weeks later, and you're like, oh shit, right? But it was coming. Like literally I felt nauseous. I was about to throw up. I was about to just like, nah. And I was like, sis, what you gonna do with panic right now? Literally, it is 10 p.m. You can't call nobody. You can't appeal no thing. You can't do shit. So how about you look at the panic? The panic is coming from something else. Okay, what did I do today? I celebrated my niece's 9th birthday, and that was lovely. And just a moment before I opened this letter, I was chilling. And this letter actually says nothing about me, what I deserve, and how I will be fed, because I know how to feed myself. Okay, that's fine. And then I literally didn't have it. And then I started crying, because I was like, I just stopped a panic attack. I was like, this is the best gift quarantine has ever given me. I saw it coming. I said, no, bitch. And I walked away. Woo. But knowing that there are choices and knowing that if I needed to have that panic attack, I would have had it and I would have been fine. Again, it's about being safe. If you ain't well and you ain't feeling right, it's okay not to feel right. You can't be, the guilt is what you need to talk to, because the guilt is coming from somewhere else. You should never apologize for how you're feeling. And anyone who's told you to do so, anyone who's told you that the way you are, the way you're feeling, the way that you express your anger, your sadness, any of that, anybody who's ever questioned that didn't take the time to listen, and so that means you need to take the time to listen to yourself and really find out just how to be safe there and to not run from it. If you're there now, trust you won't have to go back to the exact same place later. You know what I'm saying? And this last question here, shout outs to Amber. Shout outs to letting me talk my shit real long, y'all. Yay. I told you, I was like, listen, trust, I will talk. Can you always see a finished product in your work before finishing, or do you find your current spiritual space impacts and changes things along the way? I have no expectations. I get really specific with my dreams because I realized a long time ago that God is really specific. And so I'm going to get specific so I can see something just enough to get there and to know where I might want to go. But that doesn't mean that I know exactly how I'm going to get there or how I'm going to arrive. And that doesn't mean that I need to. So with Concrete Kids, the first thing I did was write a series of manifestos. One of the manifestos is in the book. It's like, this is for the concrete kids, the kids with a melanin kiss, the foster kids, the kids in gangs, the kids who are thinking about joining gangs, the kids who created them, the adults they became. This is for you, this is for you, this is for you. I kind of see a face before I see a product. I don't ever see a product, really. I see an opportunity to express, an opportunity to invite somebody to, I don't think we need to understand each other. I think we need to get acquainted with one another and understand that we may not need to understand. But I always think about just creating that direct line of authentic communication, which means I must be present enough to let it shift and change and morph the way it needs to. This is the first time though, like now with all this space in my brain, because I move. Okay, I go places. I'm always on the train, always in transit, somewhere. But having all this time, it's the first time, like I sat down and I had one idea and I said, this is gonna be a book. Like, it's not gonna be a poem, it's not gonna be a film, it's gonna be a fucking 300-page book, let's go. But when I sat down to make the outline for the book, I made an outline for a trilogy. And I said, oh, she got big dreams. What she said? And then I said, damn, she wrote a okay. And then, but it was my first time being able to see a chapter with a word, right? And I was like, holy shit, I wrote a word and I know the whole story. Then the next day, I came up with another book idea. And I was like, what? This is gonna be another, it's not a poem, it's a book. And I was like, this is long. We'll take time. And I was like, you got time to get, boo-boo? Do it. You know, and that's been exciting to see something. But the only reason why the themes and the subjects that I'm exploring, of course, I saw a group of people who wanted to read it first, you know, and I saw a need to really dive into the truth of something, you know, and I'm excited about that. But I think that, you know, if you see, everybody needs to create a space of malleability with their relationship with themselves, with their work, with their spirit. We can't have expectations of where we think we're going to end up. You might have arrived there 3 times and didn't recognize the space. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's about paying attention to the details, paying attention to the way you feel while you're doing what you do, and making sure that you do what you do with your life every day that you pay attention to that, because your life is more important than your work, and it always will be. But your work happens to take up so much of your life. So why not do what you love? Why not say, oh, if this poem is putting me through all this, and I really don't want to do that with my life right now, I'm gonna move on. Oh, this, like, the more we allow ourselves to trust that we are protected and that we can have ideas that don't go nowhere, that we can have commissions that we don't finish, that we can say no to somebody, that we don't need your money. I don't need you. I actually don't need your opinion. Recognizing who we allow to give their opinion on our work and whose opinion we allow to impact us and our process. Allowing ourselves to recognize when we have so many opinions about ourselves that we build the barriers between ourselves and our potential. Recognizing that fear of potential, you may just get what you want. Everybody's been in that situation, whether it was with a significant other, you realize, oh shit, this might be serious, runs away, does something rash, ruins it, looks at an idea that you know may just consume the next 2 years of your life and make everything and all you've been through make sense. And you run because you know you may just have to dedicate the next 2 years of your life to making it possible, you know, letting the conversations that you hold off on because you know you're gonna go somewhere, you know, we run from the beautiful things, you know. And I think allowing ourselves to find the beauty in fear, the beauty in depression, the beauty in anger, knowing that joy and happiness are 2 different things. Joy exists in everything. Happiness confuses most people. And confusion, like I said, is a state of balance. So do not let yourself be confused. Okay, and answer your own questions before you ask anybody for answers. You know what I'm saying? Before, and like knowing, also being precious with your ideas and the things that you have to offer, knowing, oh, if I let somebody impact this space right now, I may just get deterred, you know, and knowing the difference between when you need to keep something, house it, you know. It's like, I don't ever want to compare anything to pregnancy. other than the fact that something small grows and then it lives and then it is removed from its creator and it lives a life far beyond a creator can see. Hey, you don't know where your baby is going to learn how to walk. You don't know if your baby will ever learn how to walk, but you know your baby there. If you see it, you can imagine something. How do we forget that when we look at each other and when we look at ourselves? How do we forget that, you know? And I think the last thing I'll share, because she loves to go over, is a big part of my process has been of healing and of work has been mirror work. I confront all aspects of me in the mirror. I ain't just looking to put my lip on. I'm not just looking at my eyes in the mirror like, oh yeah, I see myself, she good. I look at my pores. I look at my nose today. I check my teeth. I check everything. I try to understand what's here. I look at my curl pattern. I say hello to my body. I check I look at, even when acne start, like, hey girl, what's that about? Oh, yeah. Exploring myself, because this is the vessel for everything that thinks, everything that goes through so much. My body without my soul would be nothing. So I ought to get acquainted with my temple, right? And if I recognize it, if I recognize myself, I may just know how to tend to her. I may just know how to make her see something that my soul has seen before. You know what I'm saying? So get acquainted with your body. Let your body be the holy thing that it is. Not your life. You're not your life. It cannot be your life. Your life is far too important to ever consider work. And yeah, but look at yourself. Say hello to yourself. Say hello to your body. Say hello to the soft parts of your body, under your chin, behind your ears, behind your knees, the middle of your foot. And just let, the answers are in the exhale. Hey, that's all we need. We don't need any more than that. You have everything you could possibly need. We don't need degrees. We don't need shit. You don't need internet. You don't need pen and paper. Like, you need your breath. And if you have your breath, then you have enough. And if your breath is scarce, then taste it, feel it, talk to it. If you don't feel like breathing no more, get to know it, taste it, feel it, walk in it, and then say hello to yourself again. It ain't just when the sun rises that things can be new. I've already decided, different already. You know what I mean? It has to be that simple, because this is too complicated of a life. Okay. And there are things that are so out of our control that I don't even want control anymore. I'm not looking for control. I'm building safety in myself, with nothing at all. Everything else is superfluous. I'd rather be naked laying on the ground somewhere, left alone with none of these things, and no way to write down or see anybody else, because I know if I'm found there, I would still have everything that I have now with the resources that I have. So we cannot forget or let the lack of resources or the surplus be anything that confuses us from what we have to offer naturally,